Convent schools are really strict, dude. I remember one time they were checking in the assembly who's wearing a mascara, and I was like, "Oh, how will you know? You know, there is no way you'll find out who's wearing a mascara from just like checking in a line. Are you going to like hold their eyelashes?" And they said yes.
Oh my god.
They actually
did that.
held like the leader, like the class monitor, like literally came close to you, looked at your eyelash up close, and like decided if you're wearing mascara or not. I'm like, can we just live?
It kind of scarred me, like the nails thing, because I would put nail paint every weekend and take it off after 2 days. And then now, ever since I graduated from school, I have worn nail paint every single day of my life.
As a big fuck you.
You are entering the Overthink Tank.
Joining me today is Divija Bhasin. Hi, Divija.
Hi.
She is your friendly neighborhood therapist who will give you a wake-up call right on your Instagram feed. So I'm glad you could make it to this podcast.
Thanks for having me over. I'm so awkward.
We will get rid of the awkwardness in like 5 seconds.
Okay.
Because we immediately talk about trauma and that eases people out. You know.
Yeah, it does.
Our second guest for the day is Sejal Mehra.
Hi, Surbhi.
Hi, Sejal. Thanks for being on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Sejal is my producer, fun fact. She helps me run the podcast and she also laughs at all of my not so funny jokes. But today she's also guesting on my podcast.
I'm really, really honored to be here.
Yeah.
On the other side of the camera this time.
I'm also really happy. I mean, I had to get my own water today, but that's fine. I guess for today. It works. Thank you so much, both of you, for being on this episode. As you know, this is the podcast where we do the overthinking so our listeners don't have to. So today we have a really huge question coming up. Do you want me to read it out to you?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Whew. Hi, the Overthink Tank. Before we jump into today's episode, let me take a minute to tell you a little bit about the brand I've partnered with for this episode. You know, I always prefer to collaborate with brands that I feel like truly bring value to my listeners and my viewers' lives. And Fiyama is one such brand. Fiyama has now partnered with the Minds Foundation to launch a virtual therapy clinic where you can book yourself a session for as little as 300 rupees. If you or someone you know needs therapy, you can book yourself a session with a certified therapist with Fiyama's initiative. And I think it's a super nice initiative because it's going to make mental health conversations more mainstream and just generally therapy more accessible. And isn't that what we all dreamed of one day? No? Just me? Anyway, let's get into this episode. I am a freshly graduated 21-year-old male looking out for my first job. The tricky part is that I know I'm talented, but I often fall flat in interviews. How do I work on silencing my inner critic that keeps telling me that I'm not good enough? Well. I guess a lot of it has to do with, especially when you're young. Like, I don't know if you have the judgment of like, what's the good voice, what to listen to and what not to listen to.
So I feel like that good voice doesn't come from your brain. It comes from what you see, like with your parents and with your teachers and with your friends, and what people tell you eventually over time becomes your inner voice. Like, I don't know if my inner voice even today is mine. It's been structured by what people told me since I was a kid, which is why, that voice often comes back and tells you that, hey, you're not good enough.
That's true. Honestly, no offense to my dad, but my inner voice sounds like my dad. Because you know how dads are. They're tough. They're supposed to be tough. They're supposed to be like, always tell your kids that, hey, this is good, but do better next time. And somehow the only thing my inner voice remembers to repeat is do better next time. And it's my dad's voice and I can't get rid of it. But Divija, I want to know, what is your inner voice like? Is it like, do you feel like your inner voice is also very bullying in nature? Does it feel like it's always bullying you down?
It's like confused. I mean, it's not really bullying me, but there is a smaller inner voice which bullies me, and the other one scolds the bullying one. So earlier it used to bully me, but now it started motivating me and scolding me when I am being mean to myself. Yeah.
Well, that's healthy. I mean, this is called healing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, fun fact for both of you, which I learned this morning. Both of these people went to the same school.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to name the school?
We
I would like to for the other people who might end up there,
just
so they know.
just to give out a
And for
warning.
people who know us from school would know the name of the school.
Yeah,
so-
exactly.
Just say it. If your school reaches out to us, we'll beep it out.
What will they do? They can't do anything to us anymore.
Look
never
at these
did
guts. What will the school do? Remember when they made you cut your nails?
Oh,
God.
I
That
cut
was-
them today morning. It's like a habit that doesn't go
I think you should
away
show it to
now.
the camera. It's
I
like
cut my nails, guys, all prim and proper.
Yeah.
Like a lady.
I remember that they would check my. I think there was like different days for different things. Like nails
yeah.
would be checked on Tuesday. Every Wednesday we'll check your shoes. And oh my god, dude! One
Even
time,
the color of the bra you're wearing underneath your white
Even the
school
colour
uniform
of
was
our
a huge
clips.
issue. Oh yeah, the clips also. Oh my god.
your color. So what was your school color? Was it red?
Yeah.
Oh, mine was also red. We
Red
could
and
have if we could have had the
Were
same
you also
wardrobe.
in our school survey?
I was in a convent school, but like similar vibes. I get that,
Yeah.
it's, convent
The
schools are
culture
super.
very same, yeah.
Convent schools are really strict, dude. I remember one time they were checking in the assembly who's wearing a mascara, and I was like, oh, how will you know? You know, there is no way you'll find out who's wearing a mascara from just like checking in a line. Are you going to like hold their eyelashes? And they said yes.
Oh my god.
They actually
did that.
held like the leader, like the class monitor, like literally came close to you, looked at your eyelash up close, and like decided if you're wearing mascara or not. I'm like, can we just live? What if there's mascara on my
I
eyes?
always feel like the more you restrict on such things, the more kids get curious. Like as a kid, the more curious you get about nail paint and makeup. If you just let students explore themselves, their identity, if they like something or if they don't like something, then I think they won't be so rebellious. Now the thing that is making us rebellious is your restriction and your discipline and your rules.
It kind of scarred me, like the nails thing, because I would put nail paint every weekend and take it off after 2 days. And then now, ever since I graduated from school, I have worn nail paint every single day of my life. And I can't not live.
As a big fuck you to that school.
Yeah, it's actually like that. But then it's also not healthy. Why am I wearing nail paint all the time? Even right now, like I can't have bare nails anymore. Just to
I get it.
Yeah.
Even kajal wasn't allowed back in the day. So once I was out of school, I was like, bring it on. I will never go a day without kajal. And it became my life. But like even in like schools, I don't think you're supposed to be proud of like little achievements that you make. And you can't brag about it for sure.
Not at all. Like, I remember even at home and in school, a lot of things that you do were never good enough. So like that phrase good enough has affected me as a person so deeply. Like when you asked me to be a guest, my first thought was I'm not good enough to be a guest. Then I was like, oh, that's what the episode is about. So maybe I should
Yeah.
say yes and work on this. I mean, today morning I was getting ready and I was like, I'm not good enough. Like my clothes are not good enough. My makeup is not good enough. Like I'll be working and if somebody praises me, and I just keep thinking, okay, this is not good enough. I need to do better. But even if it's a little fault and somebody scolds me for that, my brain tricks me into believing that this I deserve. Compliments I don't deserve, but
Yeah.
the scolding and the shouting I deserve because I don't know.
Yeah, and that's stupid because our brains, like, like a logical brain would be like 50-50, 50% criticism and 50% compliments. But my brain's like 99%, like, it's trying to beat you down. And maybe one slight percent if I don't know, it's easier to get into a bad mood than a good one. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, like when I make content and I get hate comments, I pay more attention to those and reply to them and like fight with them. And I reply less to the people who are actually appreciating me. I don't know, it happens automatically. And now I'm working on not doing that.
Yeah.
But still, like,
And like you bring up a great point because Instagram has become such a big part of our lives, and I think that is a place where I feel so bad for promoting myself. Like self-promoting on Instagram, I don't know if enough influencers talk about it, but I feel like it's a thing I struggle with. Even if I release something, I put up a swipe up story or something, I go like, hey guys, don't mind me, just I did a little something, you know, you can swipe up if you want.
I don't want to ruin your Instagram.
Don't want to ruin your day.
experience.
Hope the story didn't completely ruin your day, but please swipe up. So I really struggle with that, and I wanted to know, what do you guys do to deal with that? Because both of you are Instagram personalities. So, Divija, do you have any thoughts about that?
In fact, just today, like I saw someone post a reel about them being on billboards, and I was also on a billboard recently, and I did make a post after a few days because I felt like I was like I sounded too boasty. And then like today I wanted to make a reel, but then I'm like, no, Divija, you already told people about it. You can't tell them again. What will they think? And I'm like, but you're on a bill. Like, see,
Yeah.
you can see the conversation
Correct. It's
in my head.
confused. You're like, but you're on a billboard. No, but that's too much promotion. But you're on a billboard, Divija. No, that's too much. I feel like even if someone like writes your name in a what's that thing called? The skywriting way.
yeah.
You're like, well, that's not a big deal.
I'll just take a picture for myself. It's okay.
This is only for me. This person says that his interviews don't go as well. And interviews especially are a place when you're supposed to boast about.
You're supposed to sell yourself.
Yeah, you're supposed to sell yourself. You're supposed to be like, I did this and I did that.
Yeah. Jab andar hi, if you don't believe that you're a good person, how do you convince? Not just in interviews, in friendships, in relationships. Like, सामने वाला इंसान बोल भी रहा है that I love you, you're an amazing person, and अंदर से your voice comes like बकवास.
Which
जो
is
बोल
why
रहा
I
है.
think the best way to beat this is get someone else that you know, like a friend or someone, to write your resume for you, like write your cover letter for you.
Oh yeah.
Like I just honestly believe that you are not the best judge of what you have done and what you have, like all the things that you've in your pocket and all the skills that you have. So maybe sit with a friend and make them just like say all the things that they see in you as a person. And I think that could be have your resume checked by your friend.
Yeah.
Because
Or your mom.
or your mom. My mom really believes in me, dude. And sometimes I'm like, mom is, because that's kind of a weird kind of a confidence that my mom has in me.
Or maybe it's like a normal kind of confidence.
Yeah,
and you
maybe.
feel
Like you
weird.
technically should have that confidence in
Yeah.
yourself, but
You know, as you mentioned earlier, that it's weird to take a compliment. I think it's the same way. Because like criticism comes easy to us. But when someone's saying that, oh, you're good at this, we're like, what? Never
It
heard of
feels
that
weird.
before.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if someone's like, "Oh my god, I'm such a big fan." I'm like, "You're a fan? That's weird."
But do you feel like you're a generous compliment taker? Like, say if I was to come up to you and we didn't know each other and I just go like, hey, I like what you're wearing. What would you say?
So I'm fine with such compliments,
Yeah.
but then like when we were outside, she complimented my nose, and I was like, "Thanks."
Oh yeah. Don't
Depends on the compliment. I
depends on the
think.
compliment.
Yeah.
So if it's vague, you're like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Don't specifically be like your nose is perfect. By the way, the compliment that Divija was given outside, that her nose is perfect, which it is. And she hates that compliment because of the specificity it has.
It's uncomfortable. Then
Yeah.
it's like everyone's looking at my nose and evaluating it.
Yeah, you could be right. But like, I really like when people tell me that my eyebrows are nice. I'm like, okay, thanks. Don't look at me so much. Yeah, it's kind of weird that you've been like looking at my face for that long. But maybe that's the thing. It's about compliments. So don't think about them too much. How do you take your compliments?
I don't. I just walk away. I'm like, ye nahi sunna mujhe, please. Like, I genuinely don't do well with compliments. I don't know how to respond because if you say thank you, then you're coming off as cocky, as like, hey, you're beautiful. Thank you. I know. Like, then you become rude and mean.
No, you don't.
But I know you don't, but like, my voice tells me that I'm being mean. And
What does your voice exactly tell you when someone gives you a compliment? Say I tell you, hey, Sejal, I think you have a wonderful podcast voice.
No, you're lying. That's it. That's my voice. Every time
How
somebody
come?
compliments me,
Like,
it just
why
goes like,
is it the
this
first
person's lying
thing-
or this person's being nice to you, and this is not the truth. But yeah, it just happens. I mean, imagine that I was walking on the
Yeah.
road and I fell down. There was like a pothole and there was a dog and there was a car
Which
coming
day?
in my. This was like last week.
Oh no.
So, and I fell down and I got hurt pretty bad. But the first thought that came to my head was, Sejal, you're not even good enough to walk. What? And I was crying on the road, and my sister was there with me. And she's like, "Arey, itni zor ki nahi lagi, dekho khoon mere aa raha." I'm like, "I'm not hurt. I'm hurt."
But I think you're too hard on yourself in that way, because I think you can walk. I've seen you walk earlier, and I think everybody in this room will attest to the fact that Sejal can walk. So is that something you will fight now? You're like, why do so many people think that I can walk?
Why do you guys? Do you have proof?
You're
No, you
lying.
don't.
You're just
You're
being
lying.
nice to
Yeah,
me.
you're just being nice to me. But I have a really hard time accepting any sort of compliment.
You know, another thing that a lot of people suggest, that when you have this kind of an inner voice, is like, talk to yourself like how you would talk to your best friend. But I don't know if that works. What do you think about the best friend situation? Does it always work?
I personally don't do that. Like, instead, I just look at the evidence that is out there. Like, if I can walk, and most of the times I don't fall, like, I don't, right? So that means I can walk. So I try to tell myself I have proof. It's like evidence. And that's when I believe in it. So
That's actually good. Another one, like, I remember having a session with my therapist early on, and I used to believe that all my friends will leave me. And I think this also comes from the part of like self-doubt, because I feel like, why do I have friends? Do they even like me back? So I used to have this feeling of like, my friends are canceling on me because they don't like me back. And then my therapist just told me, Surbhi, listen, just make a list of like the situation, and next to it, what's the evidence to prove it? So if the situation is my friend didn't pick up my call, so she doesn't like me, or she is not talking to me because she's mad at me, what's the evidence to prove it? And if there's no evidence to prove it, that means
she's busy.
Yeah, she's just busy. Which actually is a great way to look at things. I mean, especially for people who like to look at their emotions as also like math, evidence, hence proved.
yeah, scientific.
Logic. But what do you call this approach? Is there a name for it?
I mean, it's just a technique to help with anxiety. It's like, it's kind of like CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. So it's like you're looking at your thoughts, you're noticing the thought, and then you're finding an alternative reality to it. Because this is all our like different realities, right? Like, there is no truth, but there is a little bit of it because you see evidence. So it's like science.
Science. That makes sense. Could you give us an example of like what would be like a situation and what the evidence would be to deny it?
So, deny it?
I mean, to like prove that it's not true.
Okay, so I'll tell you like an experience that I've had. So since I work with brands when I make videos, I used to charge really less or do it for free in the beginning, and then like someone told me that you should be charging more, and I'm like, why? I don't think I'm a professional video maker. So then like I used to believe that, but then that person was like just try charging once, and then I did that and I got money. So like I got evidence for the fact that I am good enough to be paid.
Yeah.
So then I started believing that, and the more I asked for money, like I started getting that money. So that means that I'm not bad.
Evidence.
Yeah.
It's in front of your eyes, my lord. But that's I think it's a great way to look at it. But I think she's raised a great point about negotiation, especially if you're in the whatever scene you could be employed, you could be looking for a job, and you could be an Instagram creator, but still like getting what you deserve is so hard. Or even like telling yourself that you deserve this much money. How do you look at like, have you ever been in a situation where like you felt like you deserved a little bit more, but you settled for less because you didn't believe in yourself?
So like often, since this question is also about job interviews, often after the job interview is done, you've been selected for the job, it's like this HR call where I was like, oh, so this is what we're offering you. Do you want to negotiate? And maybe I should have, but I've never done that in internships or in jobs. I'm like, okay, you're paying me. That's good enough for me because this is like good enough.
I don't know if this is a thing with you, but every time I have too many emotions, I like just if I'm angry, even if I feel like I have too much to talk about, I cry. Does that happen
same.
to you? Like you're an angry crier?
I'm an every mood crier. Just crying.
And that also, I feel like, weakens like the idea of who you should be in the professional space, because you're not supposed to be crying every day. I mean, I did cry a bunch in my last jobs. Like the washrooms were like crying rooms for me.
That way, work from home is easier.
Yeah, because you can
Just
cry
from home.
There's no connection. There's no Wi-Fi. I'm so sorry.
Cry from home is too funny. It's like just cry from home today.
It's like, I don't know why crying is often also seen as a sign of weakness. Like, just because I'm crying, I'm not weak. Like,
Yeah.
I'm still mad. and I
Please
still
ignore
want
my
to-
tears and look at the points I'm making. And sometimes I'm making like really good points.
Yeah, but I just don't speak properly.
But I just cannot speak properly. That's true. What's the best technique according to you to negotiate better? Say if you were to negotiate on my behalf, say I am applying for this job as a barista, but I've never made coffee before. So I want a job here.
That happened with me actually. Like I was studying abroad and I had to apply for a waitressing job, and I had never done it before. And I didn't know. Now that I think about it, I should have negotiated.
What did
I
they
didn't
offer
even
you?
negotiate. I was like, give me whatever you want.
But you're good at holding waitress, right?
Yeah, waitress. Like,
Yeah, but do you feel like you were skilled enough?
no.
How much did you think they should have paid you?
Maybe like a little more. I think they were really underpaying me. Now that I think about it, because I was working till 12 o'clock in the night.
Wow. That's amazing. And then, so you did that and now you're a therapist?
I was just doing that to earn money. Like,
Nice.
because I was outside India and my parents couldn't send me more money, and I wanted to live my life a little better there. So I did it for myself.
Did you at least get free food or something?
Sometimes, and free champagne. So that was
Free champagne is great. I mean,
That's a good bargain.
That's a good bargain. That's totally, really fun. But again, have you ever negotiated for a better salary?
No. I just haven't. I just can't, because I'm like, somebody's ready to pay me for my work. That's
Sejal,
amazing.
Well,
That's
this
just
is the point.
mind-blowing.
This is the day when this changes, okay? You have to negotiate for a better this thing. I mean, no have tos or shoulds according to my therapist. And according to another neighborhood therapist. Don't say shoulds or have tos.
I think what he should do is like go for some random job interviews and practice first without any
Yeah,
expectations.
dress up like as a clown and be like, I want to be a clown.
Yeah, and like practice, because like those are the small things that actually build your confidence. Because what if you get that clown job? Then you're like, wow, I'm capable of being a clown. I believe in myself now.
I know.
I actually want to try that. Like, I feel like dressing up like a clown. I really want
Now
to do
you just
that.
go to random, like wherever there's an opening, you're like, I'm going. There's a
going,
vacancy
I'm
here? Okay. I want to apply. Just everywhere there's a vacancy.
Oh, God.
I think that's how you, like, even in stand up, because like you also do stand up and I also did stand up. I mean, I'm taking a break for a while. But I think that's what you, like, eventually the hurt that you feel, the hurt of like bombing that you felt the first time, it decreases and you become
Yeah.
Sort
then
of like,
eventually, once
it's okay.
the 10th time or the 15th time you've bombed and you've gotten off stage, you realized it's okay. I mean, it happens.
I mean, it does hurt. I'm not going to lie.
But,
It
like,
makes me cry sometimes.
you kind of normalize it because you know
Yeah.
that every audience is different. You know your set won't kill everywhere, and that's okay.
Again, I think what we try to do for ourselves is like evidence,
And
like
practice.
proof and practice.
Yeah, think of the good performances. Think of the times I've killed in an
There
auditorium.
has been evidence that I have not shat my pants on stage, and
Exactly.
yeah, let's be proud of that today.
Yeah.
I have cried
know?
on stage also.
You've cried on stage.
It was my second open mic. It was a room full of people, so I thought, hey, I've done I one open mic and I'd done one competition, college competition before this. So I think I'll be amazing. It's a room full of people. My mom was watching for the first time, and that room was so chattery. They weren't listening to me while I was standing there with the mic, and my mom is looking at me with like so much hope. She'd driven me all the way there, and it just broke my heart.
Was it
I
a bar
started
or
crying.
something?
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
It's always like so.
Also, having someone you know in the audience makes me really conscious.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't know if it's a self-doubt
Yeah.
thing. Why?
I don't know if it's a self-doubt thing, but that happens to me when I have to order and I'm out with someone, I can order alone. But if someone else is there in front of me, I'm like, can you order for me?
What?
Yeah, it's a very weird thing.
Like you cannot order food?
Yeah, because they're looking at me then, and like there's so much expectation to order properly.
Like I can't talk on the phone if somebody else is on the
Me
room.
too.
Like I just had to send a voice note and I went all the way
Yeah.
out of the
You
building to
did.
send one
She
voice
left
note.
the building. I'm like, can you call this person? She's like, I have to leave the building to make this call. Man, you know what? So a lot of like recently in the pandemic also, a lot of my friends got married. And like the only time we would be like celebrating their achievements would be like their wedding. And I've noticed there's a lot like because a lot of my friends are getting married in the last couple of years and they're also engaged. Suddenly everyone's engaged. And I've noticed that the only time we congratulate my fellow female friends is when they're getting engaged or when they're like getting married
Or when they're pregnant.
or when they're pregnant. It's rarely ever about a professional achievement. It's rarely ever about, you know what, I made that post and it went viral. It could be about anything, but I just feel like there's a lack of like celebrative moments that we, just do for like professional achievements. It's mostly like, oh, you're getting married, let's throw a fucking party. But what about this tiny thing I achieved at work today? How do we change that? And have you had any experiences like this?
Not really. I mean, like I know what you're talking about, but personally, since I'm not married, so I don't know.
But like, do you celebrate your professional achievements?
I do. Like, I personally do because thankfully, like, my friends and my boyfriend, like, they're very supportive. But I do know that other people wouldn't really see it as a big deal. I mean, like,
Give us an example of your professional achievement that you celebrated and you think people won't take it as a big deal.
when I grew my page like that, or like when I came on the billboard. So that's a huge deal for
Having
me.
a billboard and not partying right on the billboard is wrong.
Exactly. So,
Is the billboard still out there?
it's in Select City Walk.
We have to go there and we have to make a reel. Today is that day.
No.
Maybe we can
it's
do a
too
fun
late.
transition where like it's you on the billboard and suddenly you come out of it.
Interesting.
Interesting. That's a reel we could do. What are other like spheres where people come to you and they go like, I don't believe in myself? I mean, there's definitely the job aspect. There is the aspect of negotiating. But what else?
Okay, like body image, like the way they look. It's like everything actually. Like if you have self-doubt, it's there in every aspect of your life. And I've noticed it's mostly because they have those really huge expectations to be perfect. And then they keep procrastinating because they never really think they'll be good enough. And then they end up not doing it.
Yeah.
So that's when I tell them to start with really small goals because their goal right now is huge and we don't want that. We want that goal to be put into smaller goals. So
But you
like
still have to do them.
yeah, but then it's easier to apply to the college and that's an easier goal. Picking up a pen and filling the form is easier than actually getting into the college.
Yeah.
So at least you do that because otherwise people don't end up doing that also.
So yeah, as you mentioned that, people tend to procrastinate their own thing also. So if you think about it, if we want to all achieve our goals, we would actually ideally should, again, no shoulds, we would do the thing that we need to do, but we don't do that. And that is another side of self-doubt where like you sabotage your own self. You basically are coming in, the literal definition of self-sabotage is when you come in the way of your own like progress and you constantly procrastinate and you feel like nothing you do will make a difference. So you constantly just keep putting it for later. How do you feel like self-sabotaging is something that we can keep in control and possibly stop altogether?
That's a really heavy and subjective question. So it depends on where the self-doubt is coming from. And like first you need to look at where it's coming from and identify that and realize that it's not coming from the fact that you're a failure. It's actually that maybe your thought patterns are like that, or like maybe your parents didn't praise you enough. So if you know that, then you'll know that the reason is something else and it's not you. Like you shouldn't be blaming yourself for your self-doubt. It's like you blame yourself, your self-doubt increases and then it's like a cycle. So it's important to look at other factors.
But like again, another thing that I would like to talk about is the side of sabotage. Why do we feel the need to do it? Because it's definitely something that we do to protect ourselves from something. I mean, again, the whole psychology of self-doubt and self-sabotage is that we're basically afraid of something. And we're basically trying to stay in our comfort zone, which is why we're not doing enough. What is that based out of? What are we afraid of? That we're so like, oh no, I don't want to do this.
So this is like a sign of anxiety. Like everyone has anxiety, but this is just like us overthinking to the extent that we think that if we don't make it, it'll be the end of the world, and like it's the worst that can happen. So we need to tell ourselves like, what is the worst that will happen? Like ask yourself that, and the answer will be.
But is that like, the another aspect of like worst case scenario? Because I always think of worst case scenario, and then it just becomes my go-to thing. And that's when you're like, everybody around me will die one day, and what's the point of everything? So there is some kind of a link to like, just really always, what was the term for it?
Catastrophizing.
Yeah, catastrophizing is when you think that your cat's going to die and going to murder you in your sleep. That's right.
Yeah.
That's the scientific definition of catastrophizing. Say it again, please.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay, well,
magnifying the problem.
Magnifying the problem too much. Sometimes I'm just like, what's the point if my
So you answer like you ask yourself, right? Like the worst will happen. So ask yourself like, what is the worst that will happen? So like in this scenario, he won't get the job. That's the worst that will happen. It's not like he will die.
He could die.
He could die
on his way to the job. I mean, I'm just saying.
Evidence. How many times did he die in the past?
There is no evidence that this guy has died on his way to any interviews. So I guess there is a slim chance that he will die, not a bigger chance.
I mean, we can always die. We can die right now.
It's like every... Oh no, it's too dark.
No, say it.
It's like every action we're taking, every choice we're making is eventually leading up to our death someday. So
This is like final destination.
Oh my God.
Like these mics.
Could
They
be
look scary.
Yeah. We're about to kill you guys. You're held hostage. All right, guys, this brings us to the end of this episode. I think we overthought this question we did a good job. And if you are someone who's listening and you also deal with self-doubt, know that there are options out there and you can seek help. There's CBT, there's your friendly neighborhood therapist you can reach out to. And Sejal is obviously, just send her DM saying that she's amazing, and she'll reply back to you saying you're lying.
you're lying.
You can walk.
Just send her DMs assuring that, hey Sejal, you can walk. Yeah. All right, this brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much, Divija. Thank you so much, Sejal, for being on this podcast.
Thank you, Subhi, for calling us.
But before you guys go, I have some really fun hampers for you. Yes, Fiyama Feel Good Sessions has been nice, and they have sent us some nice fun things. I hope you enjoyed this hamper. Sejal, this one's for you. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you like this podcast, don't forget to go on Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. It really helps us out, and it will take only a minute. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hey overthinkers, this Mental Health Awareness Day, I wanted to share a resource with you all that has changed my life for the better. I'm talking about therapy. I've been in therapy since 2019 and I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder earlier this year. In fact, therapy has revealed quite a few things to me about me that I have never really explored before. Which is why I'm so excited to be partnering with Fiyama, a brand that is subsidizing therapy and making it more accessible. Fiyama, in partnership with the Minds Foundation, brings you a virtual therapy clinic, which basically means you can book yourself a session with a certified therapist online by just going on this link. I am putting the link in the description box, so do check it out, and thank you once again for sponsoring this episode, Fiyama.